Imagine a leader so feared that his very name sent shivers down the spines of the Roman Empire, a man who led an army of ruthless warriors leaving destruction in his wake. A conqueror whose brutal tactics and relentless ambition earned him the title, the Scourge of God. This was Attila the Hun. But was he merely a barbarian? Or was he a brilliant strategist who reshaped the fate of Europe? Today, we uncover the true story of Attila, the man who brought Rome to its knees and changed history forever. The rise of Attila. Born around 406 AD into the ruling family of the Huns, Attila grew up surrounded by war and political intrigue. The Huns were a nomadic people, feared across Europe for their unmatched cavalry and brutal raids. Attila and his brother Bleda inherited leadership of the Huns in 434 AD, ruling jointly. But Attila had greater ambitions. Unlike the common perception of him as a mere brute, Attila was a shrewd diplomat and negotiator. He struck deals with both the Eastern and Western Roman empires, securing tributes in gold while carefully planning his next move. However, tensions between the Huns and Rome soon escalated, and the time for negotiation was over. Attila's diplomatic prowess was evident in his ability to manipulate rival factions. He played the Romans against their enemies, extracting wealth and resources while keeping his own forces strong. This strategic cunning made him one of the most formidable leaders of his time. War against Rome. In 445 AD, Attila became the sole ruler of the Huns after allegedly assassinating his brother Bleda. With total control of the Hunnic army, he launched devastating campaigns against the Eastern Roman Empire, forcing Emperor Theodosius II to pay massive tributes to keep the Huns at bay. Attila's armies were unlike any other. They relied on swift cavalry strikes, overwhelming their enemies with speed and precision. His warriors were masters of mounted archery, capable of firing arrows with deadly accuracy while galloping at full speed. This mobility made them nearly impossible to defeat in open battle. His dominance over the Eastern Roman Empire forced them to sign peace treaties that granted him even more power. Attila's tactics of intimidation and destruction ensured that he remained the most feared enemy of Rome. But Attila's hunger for power wasn't satisfied. In 451 AD, he set his sights on Gaul, modern-day France, where he faced off against a coalition of Romans and Visigoths led by the Roman general Flavius Aetius. The result was the legendary Battle of the Catalonian Plains, one of the most significant battles of late antiquity. Though Attila's forces wreaked havoc, they were ultimately stopped in one of the bloodiest conflicts in history. The battle was a turning point. It proved that Attila was not invincible, but it also cemented his status as the greatest threat Rome had ever faced. Historians often debate how close Attila came to conquering Western Europe. Some argue that if he had succeeded at the Battle of the Catalonian Plains, the history of the continent might have been rewritten, with the Huns establishing a new dominant empire over Europe. The invasion of Italy. A year later, in 452 AD, Attila turned his army toward Italy, plundering cities and laying waste to the land. Rome was vulnerable and panic spread across the empire. However, something unexpected happened. Pope Leo I personally met with Attila, and shortly after, the Huns retreated. Historians debate what truly happened during this meeting. Some claim that Pope Leo convinced Attila to spare Rome through diplomacy, while others suggest that disease, famine, or the threat of reinforcements led to his withdrawal. Whatever the reason, Attila's retreat remains one of history's great mysteries. Attila's decision to spare Rome is a subject of great speculation. Some believe he saw no strategic advantage in taking the city, while others argue that he feared supernatural consequences. The meeting between the Pope and Attila remains one of the most intriguing moments in history. Regardless of the reason, Attila's ability to bring the most powerful empire in history to its knees showcased his unmatched military and strategic skills. Rome had never faced a more relentless enemy. The death of a conqueror. In 453 AD, Attila prepared for another invasion, but he would never see it through. On the night of his wedding to a young bride named Ildiko, Attila mysteriously died. Some say he suffered a fatal nosebleed after excessive drinking. Others believe he was assassinated. With his death, the Hunnic Empire crumbled as internal conflicts and rivalries tore it apart. Attila's sudden death left a power vacuum. His sons attempted to rule, but without their father's leadership, the once mighty empire fell into chaos. The Huns, once feared across Europe, quickly faded from history. Attila's legacy. Attila's reputation as a brutal warlord remains, but modern historians recognize him as more than just a savage conqueror. He was a master tactician who leveraged fear, diplomacy, and military strategy to carve out one of the most powerful empires of his time. His campaigns weakened Rome, hastening its decline, and his legacy influenced European history for centuries. Even today, Attila's name is synonymous with destruction and conquest. But was he truly the villain history paints him to be, or was he a leader simply playing by the rules of survival in a ruthless world? Attila's leadership style has been compared to that of other great conquerors, such as Genghis Khan and Alexander the Great. While his methods were brutal, they were also effective. He unified a diverse and warlike people, turning them into one of the most formidable military forces of the ancient world. The fall of the Hunnic Empire. The rapid decline of the Hunnic Empire after Attila's death in 453 AD is one of history's most striking examples of how a leader's absence can unravel an entire dominion. Attila had ruled with absolute authority, commanding unwavering loyalty from his warriors and striking fear into both his allies and enemies. However, his sudden and unexpected death created a leadership crisis that the Huns could not recover from. Without Attila's unifying force, his empire splintered due to several key factors. Lack of a strong successor. Unlike other great conquerors, such as Genghis Khan, Attila did not establish a clear system of governance or a strong line of succession. His sons, Elak, Dengizish, and Ernak, immediately began feuding over control of the empire. This internal strife weakened the Hunnic leadership and divided their forces. Revolt of the subject tribes. The Hunnic Empire was built on a fragile network of alliances with various subjugated peoples, including the Ostrogoths, Gepids, and other Germanic tribes. These groups had remained loyal to Attila out of fear and necessity, but with his death, they saw an opportunity to break free from Hunnic domination. They quickly rebelled, turning against the Huns and further destabilizing the empire. The Battle of Nidau, 454 AD. One of the most decisive moments in the Hunnic downfall was the Battle of Nidau in 454 AD. Led by the Germanic king Ardaric of the Gepids, the formerly subjugated tribes rose up against the Huns in a massive revolt. The battle resulted in a crushing defeat for Attila's sons, with Elak being killed in the conflict. This battle marked the end of the Huns' dominance in Central Europe. The fragmentation of Hunnic forces. After the Battle of Nidau, the remaining Huns scattered across different regions, with some retreating to the eastern steppes while others attempted to integrate into local Germanic and Roman societies. Dengizish, another of Attila's sons, tried to reclaim some of the lost Hunnic power, but his efforts failed and he was eventually killed in 469 AD. The changing political landscape. With Rome's decline and the rise of new power structures in Europe, the Huns found themselves unable to maintain their dominance. Many of their former warriors were absorbed into the armies of the Germanic kingdoms, or the remnants of the Roman Empire. Without a centralized authority, the Huns effectively ceased to exist as a unified force. By the late 5th century, the once feared Hunnic Empire had disappeared, leaving behind only traces of its influence in history. Attila's legacy endured in legend, but his empire, built on military strength and intimidation, could not survive without him. After Attila's death, his empire fell apart quickly. His sons, unable to command the same loyalty and respect, fought among themselves. The subject tribes of the Hunnic Empire revolted, and within a few decades, the once feared Huns were no longer a dominant force in Europe. The rapid collapse of the Hunnic Empire highlights the importance of strong leadership. Without Attila's unifying presence, the Huns were unable to maintain their dominance. Their empire, built on military might and fear, disintegrated almost overnight. myth versus reality. While Attila is often portrayed as a merciless barbarian, he was also a skilled diplomat and strategist. He negotiated with Rome as often as he fought it, and he understood the power of psychological warfare. His ability to inspire fear was as much a weapon as his army. Yet Attila's impact went beyond warfare. His invasions contributed to the eventual fall of the Western Roman Empire, reshaping the political landscape of Europe. His legacy endures, not just in history books but in popular culture, where he remains one of the most infamous figures of the ancient world.